And welcome to the Unitarian Congregation of Taos. I'm Mimi Owensby, and I'm a member of this congregation. Unitarian Universalism is a loving, open-minded, and liberal religious community that encourages you to seek your own spiritual path wherever it leads. Born of the Jewish and Christian traditions, we believe that personal experience, conscience, and reason should be the final authorities in religion. In the end, religious authority lies not in a book, a person, or a building, but in ourselves. If you're searching for a religious home where people respect each other's different beliefs and worship together as one faith, find us. Please turn off your cell phones if you haven't done it already. I would especially like to welcome all visitors here this morning and invite you to come again. We don't want to embarrass you, but only if you feel comfortable. Please rise and tell us who you are and where you're from. We have a lot of visitors this morning, so if...
Here, let me bring you a microphone. You didn't know this was going to happen, did you?
No, I didn't. Good morning. It's nice to be here. I am Marianne Reynolds. I'm from Denver, and I'm Bee's sister.
Oh!
So it's nice to be here, and I know this community means so much to her and to Michael. Kia ora koutou.
Now you do, right?
I'm Marty O'Connell. I'm here with my husband, Pat, and we live right around the corner on Cruz Alta, and we're happy to be here. We've been in Taos for the last 5 years.
I'm Sandy Romero, and I'm from Taos here.
Welcome.
Thank you. Well, that helped. Well, we welcome you. If anyone here is not on our email list and would like to be, please sign the clipboard on the table. That way we can keep you informed by email about our congregation and related activities that you might find of interest. You can also find information on the table on Unitarian beliefs and principles. For those of you who attend our services in circles and are not yet members of the congregation, our book is always open for you to sign and become a voting member. If you would like to do so, please see one of the board members after the service, and we will be happy to be a member and assist you in signing the book. Board members can be identified by our green name tags. Our minister today is the Reverend Diana Davies. Our wonderful pianist is Martha Grossman. And our tech team consists of Joe Mazza and Rachel Cohen. The circle topic next week is an open one where we have an opportunity to share whatever is on our minds. In 2 weeks, our service will be the annual Dia de los Muertos, led by Marcia and Chuck Fawns. Our flowers today were provided by Gail. Thank you very much. They're lovely. If you'd like to provide flowers for our service, please find the sign-up sheet on the table. This is pledge season, and you should have received your pledge letter by now. But there are other ways to give to the church, and Emily Gillespie is here to give you an overview of one of them. Emily?
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you on this rainy 2 days. I was struck this morning by how quickly October has been flying, but it's already the 20th. So as this year to a close, we wanted to remind everyone about RMDs. You know, there's an acronym for everything. RMD stands for Required Minimum Distribution. Starting at age 73, we are required to withdraw a certain minimum amount each year from our IRA accounts based on an IRS table, which I don't even understand. I looked at it and I went, that's strange. Only accountants understand what that table is, probably. But if you are in this situation, you can satisfy some of your withdrawal amount that the IRS is requiring by paying your pledge to UCOT directly from your IRA. Since we are a nonprofit, your pledge will not be taxed so long as the money goes directly from your account to the church. Don't let it come to you first, because if you get it, you got to pay taxes on it. So avoid that at all costs. In this way, UCOT will get the full dollar amount of your pledge, and you won't have to pay any taxes on that portion of your withdrawal. Thanks.
Thank you, Emily. That's kind of good news for everybody. I like that. The Charitable Giving Committee manages the donations that we, the church, give to 15 nonprofit organizations. With us today is Betty Meyerson, who is a member of the committee and will tell us about True Kids One.
Good morning. True Kids One is a fairly new nonprofit in Taos, started in 2017. And what it does is it teaches kids about technology to prepare them for careers in that field. In-school programs boost awareness of and tools within the rapidly evolving media and tech universe. We teach technical skills that can open doors into New Mexico's growing media, tech, and STEM industries. We preach balance and a sound understanding of how to safely and responsibly use technology. So they have after-school programs. They also have summer programs. And they produce wonderful videos on all sorts of subjects that different groups are hiring them to make. I'm associated with a program at St. James, and True Kids One made us a wonderful video. And they have cutting edge technology. It's a great program. It's a really great thing. Thank you for listening.
Betty. Before we open the floor for church-related announcements, we're requesting that in the future, if you want to make a church-related announcement, that you please submit it in writing to Diana at least 10 minutes before the service. We're very conscious of time during the service and want to make sure your announcements are short and to the point, and only if they are church-related. This way, Diana can judge whether or not she has to make any changes. So she would really like to see those announcements. Please, when you're making your announcement, please tell the congregation that you won't take any questions. And if they want to ask you one, to ask it after the service. Do we have any church-related announcements? You are excused from the requirement today. Gosh, I guess I scared everybody. Okay. Now we come to a time of service when we share our joys that make us laugh and our sorrows that sadden us. In order to do that, you come forward and pick up a stone, share your joy or sorrow, and place the stone in the water. You want to do it?
I firmly believe in separation of church and state. You were supposed to get it. Right? Okay. Other than that, I have the joy. Jim is on a plane on his way back from Mayo Clinic. He had another surgery, and they found that at the moment he is free of cancer.
We follow the order.
Morning. I have a joy this morning. I found out last week that somebody in this congregation didn't know that 3 years ago I got a divorce. That's not a sorrow. Don't be saying sorry. So it's been 3 years, and y'all haven't met my new partner yet, and neither have I. But I'm claiming it, and I'm happy about it.
There's no way I can follow that, but I told you the last time that we were having the Empty Bowls fundraiser yesterday at St. James for the food pantry. It was a bunch of you came, thank you, or gave money, thank you. And it was a fabulous success, and they still have things left. And if you want to go across the street, you'll see the big tent. Which direction am I looking? Thank you. Yeah, that way. Go in the parish hall right after this service, and they have some more things that you might want to buy. Thank you.
Lee and I have been very joyous because we have our first student, exchange student here. She's been here for over a week now, and she's from New Zealand. She announced herself, but she came to us when she was 17. She turned 18 at our house, then she came back and she turned 30 at our house. Then she came back and she brought her family, and now 39 years later, she's back again, and it's very joyous.
No.
So a week ago, I was privileged to spend time with my family at our family ranch doing a demolition work party. And it was just a great joy to me, the cooperation, the good work that got done. And then I found out as a result of that, being together with my son and so forth, that his long lost son, my grandson, has rejoined the family. That's very exciting and very happy news.
Since Joanne was redundant, I'm going to be redundant too. And I'm going to say how happy I am to have my sister. Other than my daughter Ellie, she's the first one in my family, other than my husband, to come to the Unitarian congregation. And I am so happy to have her here.
Yeah, last weekend, Carol and I went up into Santa Barbara Canyon, and it was exquisitely beautiful. I mean, we are all so lucky to live in such a lovely area. And then on Sunday, we went up to the Brazos and sat there and had a picnic lunch, and then hiked around Tres Piedras. I encourage everybody to get out and enjoy. We all get so busy with our lives, but I encourage everybody to keep your eyes open, enjoy the seasons and the beauty. And friends.
I choose this stone for all the unsaid joys and sorrows that are among us today.
As Unitarian Universalists, we recognize the wisdom in many kinds of texts, including the sacred texts of many different spiritual traditions. Today, during this Jewish holiday of Sukkot, our opening words will be drawn from the Hebrew scriptures, the book of Isaiah, chapter 61, verses 1 through 3. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because the Lord has anointed me. He has sent me to bring good news to the oppressed, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and release to the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, to provide for those who mourn in Zion, to give them a garland instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, the mantle of praise instead of a faint spirit. They will be called oaks of righteousness, the planting of the Lord to display his glory. I invite you to please rise in body or in spirit for the lighting of our chalice, and you'll find the words printed in your order of service. We light our flaming chalice to illuminate the world we seek. In the search for truth, may we be just. In the search for justice, may we be loving. And in loving, may we find peace. And remaining as you are, let's sing our song for gathering. For today, we're just singing one verse in English. This reading is by Robin Wall Kimmerer, who is a citizen Potawatomi Nation member and an environmental biologist. This is an excerpt from her essay, The Council of Pecans, from her book, one of my holy scriptures, Braiding Sweetgrass. Nut trees don't make a crop every year, but rather produce at unpredictable intervals. Some years a feast, most years a famine, a boom and a bust cycle known as mast fruiting. Unlike juicy fruits and berries, which invite you to eat them right away before they spoil, nuts protect themselves with a hard, almost stony shell and a green, leathery husk. The tree does not mean for you to eat them right away with juice dripping down your chin. Nuts are designed to be brought inside to save for later in a chipmunk's cache. In the way of all hoards, some will surely be forgotten, and then a tree is born. For mast fruiting to succeed in generating new forests, each tree has to make lots and lots of nuts, so many that it overwhelms the would-be seed predators. If a tree just plodded along, making a few nuts every year, they'd all get eaten and there would be no next generation of pecans. But given the high caloric value of nuts, the trees can't afford this outpouring every year. They have to save it up, as a family saves up for a special event. Mast fruiting trees spend years making sugar, and rather than spending it little by little, they stick it under the proverbial mattress, banking calories as starch to their roots. If one tree fruits, they all fruit. There are no soloists. Not one tree in a grove, but the whole grove. Not one grove in a forest, but every grove, all across the county and all across the state. The trees act not as individuals, but somehow as a collective. Exactly how they do this, we don't know yet. But what we see is the power of unity. What happens to one happens to all. We can starve together or feast together. All flourishing is mutual. Well, I don't know about you all, but my stress about the upcoming elections is about up to here. In the newsletter for November, in my article, talked a little bit about that and talked about utilizing some spiritual practice, especially to get through election night. And I included a link to a website that has lots of great practices, uplifting music. It's a terrific resource, so I hope you'll take advantage of that and take care of yourselves. I'd like to utilize that resource that I listed there today to do a couple of the group spiritual practices. So with a big sigh, take a deep breath in and just I invite you to put one hand over your heart. And the other hand, we're going to use to hit something. Not your neighbor, maybe your leg or the chair or something else. And we're going to make a heartbeat. So with your hand over your heart, it might feel good to close your eyes or just have them softly focused. Just get comfortable. We're going to start out really quiet, just with gentle rhythm. Just notice that heartbeat that is yours. That is the heart of all the dear people gathered around you. And that is the heartbeat of those far away. The heartbeat of the earth itself, holding us all in love and care. And if you'd like, let's get a little louder. So that those who need to hear it, who know they're not alone, We are together. And let's get a little softer. And let it fade away. And just notice the beating of your own heart. Once more, let's take a deep breath and sigh it out. And I invite you to let your eyes open if they were closed. And just take a moment and look around the room. Try to make eye contact with maybe at least one other person. Just notice all these loving faces, these dear spirits here with you in this place today. Here with you even when we're apart. You know, it's at a time like this when what we really need is a prophetic voice. And here is the preacher's quandary. How the heck do you speak to a time like this? To be clear, for Unitarian Universalist, speaking in a prophetic voice is not only the purview of ministers. The great 20th century Unitarian Universalist theologian James Luther Adams witnessed the rise of fascism in Germany firsthand. He later wrote that, quote, "A church that does not concern itself with the struggle in history for human decency and justice, a church that does not show concern for the shape of things to come, a church that does not attempt to interpret signs of the times is not a prophetic church." As an element of the radical laicism, we need also a firm belief in the prophethood of all believers. The prophetic liberal church is the church in which all members share the common responsibility to attempt to foresee the consequences of human behavior, both individual and institutional, with the intention of making history instead of merely being pushed around by it. Unquote. You know, thinking about the prophetic voice brings us back to today's opening reading from the Hebrew scriptures, from the Nevi'im, or the prophets, the book of Isaiah. And although this book is ascribed to the prophet Isaiah, a Jerusalemite who would have been active in the 8th century before the Common Era, the later chapters were likely written by someone living nearly 200 years later, after Jerusalem had been destroyed and then reoccupied and rebuilt. When Jerusalem was obliterated by the Babylonian Empire in 586 BCE, tens of thousands of Jews were forced into exile. For decades, the prophets envisioned returning to the holy city. And eventually they were allowed to return, but the return didn't happen all at once, and it wasn't as idyllic as the prophets had foretold. The people returned in waves and in trickles from all over Mesopotamia and Egypt. They came back changed by their experiences. Some had gotten used to life in big cities. Others had been surviving as rural farmers. And they came back influenced by the cultures in which they'd been living. Some had never left. And most likely they felt pretty put out by the return of those long absent compatriots. It was a recipe for conflict and deep division. The people fought and jostled for power. The stronger took advantage of the weak. This was a time when unity was sorely needed. In the passage that I read, the prophetic voice offers hope, speaking not about the troubles of the day, but providing a vision for a better future. In this future, the people of Jerusalem have built up their ruined city and they've overcome their divisions to be like oaks of righteousness. Why oaks? We know that oaks are often used as symbols of qualities like strength and endurance. The wood of the oak is strong and hard and resistant to insects. But there is something else about oaks that makes them particularly resilient and enduring. And it has to do with acorns. As we learned from that reading by Robin Wall Kimmerer, oaks, along with other nut-bearing trees, ensure their continuation as a species through masting. In what's known as a mast year, some individual oak trees can produce up to 10,000 acorns each. So many acorns all at one time overwhelms the squirrels and the birds and the other critters who like to eat them. They can't possibly consume such an abundance of food. And so many acorns grow into new trees. Now, the thing is that this strategy only works if all of the oaks over a very large area, over many hundreds of square miles and more, work together. Survival over the long run only works if all of the oaks are unified, functioning as one for the good of the whole. More than this, masting may occur across different species of trees. Here in the Southwest, some scientists have found that pinyon pines and one-seed junipers and oaks all seem to synchronize their masting. Well, there are some theories about how all of this works. Resource cycling is one factor. It takes a lot of energy to produce a bumper crop of acorns or nuts, and so it takes a long time for the trees to recover. Late frosts can reduce the total number of flowers, which in turn reduces the amount of seed. And floods or droughts will play a significant role. But none of these factors alone can explain the synchronized masting of trees over great distance, and even among different species of trees. Something else must be going on. What seems to be going on is conversation. We know that trees communicate through pheromones that they release into the air. When one group of trees is attacked by insects, for example, they'll release a chemical distress signal that alerts the other trees to launch their own chemical defense. And communication doesn't just happen through the air. It happens underground through mycorrhizal networks. Networks of fungi that live in a symbiotic relationship with the trees. The trees provide the fungi with sugars, and the fungi in turn process minerals from the soil, and they share them with the trees. Some naturalists and fiction writers have described the mycorrhizal network as a kind of tool that trees use to communicate with each other, kind of like their own organic internet. But as Merlin Sheldrake points out in his beautiful book, Entangled Life, quote, "The fungus is a living organism with its own interest. It is an active part of the system," unquote. In other words, the trees and the fungi need each other to survive. They are invested in each other at the deepest level. Conversations within conversations. So going back to Isaiah and the fractured nature of the post-exile Jewish society, it becomes clearer why the prophetic poet who wrote the verses that we read would envision the people standing together like oaks bound together in deep and intricate ways, none acting apart, but unified. And couldn't Isaiah's oaks teach us a lesson for our own time? Because we also face power struggles and prejudice and oppression and deep divides and seemingly insurmountable conflicts. Our most basic and most treasured systems of democracy are in a precarious situation we hold. The values that we hold dear, including equity, bodily integrity, religious freedom, the right to love whom we love, to be who we know ourselves to be, read the books we want to read, and speak out against corruption and injustice whenever we see them, all of these things are under attack. And sadly, as much as we might wish for it, it doesn't seem that any great prophet will suddenly emerge to speak truth to tyrants and unleash divine wrath against the oppressors. There may be no great prophet, but I believe there is a prophethood of all believers. All of us who still believe in democracy. All of us who still believe that our society can be better, kinder, fairer. All of us who strive to bind up the brokenhearted, proclaim liberty to the captives, and release to the prisoners. All of us who yearn to comfort those who mourn. I believe that we are a prophethood of all believers when we, like the trees, think and work together to interpret the signs of the times, send out a warning signal, and then act in the way that the times demand, so that we are not merely pushed around by history, so that we make history. In masting, all trees are made stronger because they act together. And they must act together because they are bound together. Like the trees, then, we must be bound together. We must not turn our backs on the immigrant who seeks a safer home, the woman who needs an abortion, the trans child who needs health care and affirmation, the prisoner on death row who seeks a fair trial as well as mercy, the child who just wants to go to school without being shot. We cannot abandon any of these out of political expediency or for any other reason. All must be a part of the network of care. And just as the trees are connected together and held within a mighty mycorrhizal network, a web that they can't see, but that holds them all in care, I believe there is something. Call it mystery, call it God, call it love, call it being, that cares about us and wants us to thrive. No one knows for sure when a Mast year will come or exactly how it comes, but somehow it does come. It begins as a whisper, underground and in the air, but it grows into a deluge. So vast, so powerful that it cannot be contained. It comes as a wave of abundance. It plants the seeds from which future generations will grow. It plants the seeds of hope. It promises more Mast years to come. It begins as a conversation, deep, ongoing, and intertwined. It begins with every single one of us.
Now is the time in our service when we help the church and in its work by donating to it. We'll take the morning offering. We honor your gifts and thank you for giving them. Please rise as you are able. Turn in your hymnals to 171. We'll build the land. 121. I'm sorry.
Please be seated. Our closing words are from The Cure at Troy by Irish poet and Nobel Prize winner Seamus Heaney. Human beings suffer. They torture one another. They get hurt and get hard. No poem or play or song can fully right a wrong inflicted or endured. History says, don't hope on this side of the grave. But then, once in a lifetime, the longed for tidal wave of justice can rise up, and hope and history rhyme. So hope for a great sea change on the far side of revenge. Believe that a further shore is reachable from here. Believe in miracles and cures and healing wells. Call the miracle self-healing, the utter self-revealing double take of feeling. If there's fire on the mountain or lightning and storm, and a God speaks from the sky, that means someone is hearing the outcry and the birth cry of new life at its term. It means that once in a lifetime, justice can rise up, and hope and history rhyme. Please join us in saying the words as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Today, instead of receiving a blessing from me, I invite you to bless one another. As we did before, I invite you to put your hand over your heart and just take a moment. This is so hard for me to do without crying. And look at each other and offer someone else a silent blessing, reminding them they are not alone. And I invite you to just sit in that blessing for a moment as Martha plays us out with some beautiful music.